folks, I'm going to tell you 5 quick facts about black bull markets. Now, did you know, number 1, they're New Zealand FMA regulated? Number 2, did you know they have a copy trading service where you can either be a signal provider or copy signals? And number 3, did you know they've got over 26,000 tradable assets, including Forex, crypto, stocks, indices, and even more? And number 4, did you know they offer 500 to 1 leverage? And number 5, if you open up an account today and trade 1 lot a month, they're going to give you TradingView Pro for free. Check them out, Black Bull Markets.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brinks Trades here, and so happy to come on the TradingView or Trading Up podcast platform to give a breakdown and analysis on indices for the upcoming week. And so I'll be coming on every weekend, usually Saturdays about this time, just to give you guys a good overview of what's going on and just pre-market analysis for going into next week. So let's go ahead and crack open these charts. So if you know anything about me, if you're a follower of mine, or if you know anything about the way I trade, I always start with the US dollar index. Why do I start with this? Because it doesn't matter what market you trade. Currently, as of right now, the US dollar is king. And so if we have an understanding of where we're going with the US dollar, then we can take that analysis and transfer it into pretty much any market, Forex, futures. And so when we touch on indices, this will actually play into my analysis as well. So overall, just coming into the week, I'm holding a bullish bias on dollar index. If we kind of look at what's happened over the past couple of weeks, I always start on the weekly time frame just to get a better understanding of what's going on in the weekly. We can see, in the last couple of weeks, we've been trading at a particular level. So if we zoom in on this particular price action right here on the weekly time frame, we can see that, up until recently, we've been trading at a level that is known as consequent encroachment, right? And so all consequent encroachment is the weekly, the 50% level of a particular wick. And so we've really been, this has been considered a level of resistance for us over the past couple of weeks. If we look at the last 3 weeks of price action, we've traded at this level and had really a hesitancy to go through it. And so overall, I am I'm bullish on dollar, but I want to see price kind of come over this level, break out through this level, just to continue to retest these highs and really give us an idea of confirming this overall trend. And so obviously that'll play into some of the Forex analysis that I do within my group chats and in my mentorship. But specifically with the world of indexes, seeing a breakout past this level will really confirm what we're looking for in terms of bearishness on indices, which is what we've seen previously. And so kind of getting a better gauge on this, if we go down to the daily time frame, again, we can see that price action has not really lent itself very well to continuing this level on. So this could signal a long-term reversal if we continue to see, resistance at this level that's not being met and overcome. And so there's a couple of things here that stand out to me. Obviously, imbalance here, fair value gap right there. And so this could lead us to more bearishness or more bullishness on the US index if we continue to get a break above this. So overall, long-term, I am bullish. With that being said, if we are bullish on dollar index, that means we should be bearish on indice platforms. We should also be bearish on Forex platforms that or Forex markets that, obviously the US dollar is the secondary pair, right? And so as we break this down, let's kind of step into our first index pair. So our first index pair that we're going to break down is going to be the NASDAQ. And so starting the weekly time frame, I've been calling a few levels for the past few months in my private group, in my mentorship. And so, when this pullback started happening, this was kind of the level, this imbalance right here was in the level that we thought was going to particularly get hit. And this imbalance starts at 14,231. And so, I've been calling this level out since September. And so over the past few weeks, we've really had the opportunity for price to come in and hit this level. And so coming into last week's price action, if we take the candles back, a week up until price action, there was a couple of targets that I had that I wanted to get met. The first level was going to be this weekly draw on liquidity here that starts at 14,463. And so I really wanted to see sell side liquidity get hit at this level and get taken out. And so coming into this week, we had, or coming into last week, we had rejected a fair value gap to the top. We had saw, price try to trade higher. I ultimately rejected from this gap, and then really took out the sell side is where we were aiming for. And so I wanted to see price break past the consequent encroachment of this particular wick right here. And so once we traded past that level to close the week off, I knew that this was going to be our target. What I didn't expect, going into last week was price to really come down into this zone and hit it all in 1 week. And so ultimately, if we fast forward to last week, this is exactly what we got. Until we traded back up to start the week off, gave us an opportunity to take some shorts in that zone. And then this is where we ended up, right? So we ended up hitting this all in this 1 week and trading back into mean threshold of this fair value gap. If you look here, we can see that price has traded back to the mean threshold level inside of this fair value gap. So what I'm looking for coming into this week, is a couple of things. So since this was our long-term quarterly objective, a lot of times, when we're calling out a particular level to get hit on these higher time frames, the first thing you want to do is really just sit back and just wait to see what happens next on the charts. And so if we kind of break things down to a lower level, there's a couple of things that I'll be looking for on a daily platform to get hit. So since we traded into this imbalance and we really had a chance to kind of reset and grab liquidity inside of this fair value gap on the bigger time frames, the next thing that we can really look for is kind of short-term targets. Ultimately, since this is the quarterly objective, I want to start to see price move bullishness, but there's no guarantee that we're done with this bearish momentum. So just because this is our long-term target does not mean that price can continue lower. And so if we go back to the weekly time frame, outlined here is another imbalance that I think price has the potential if we just get an accelerated run to the downside. Ultimately here though, playing things safe, and you're going to see this across most of my calls for this week, just because, we have hit a week where we've hit our weekly targets. So what I want to see here for this week upcoming is, for price to start out the week by retracing back into this imbalance here. If we zoom in, there was an imbalance here that was left at the 14,000, starts at 14,373 and runs all the way up into the 14,625 level. So I'd like to see, in a best case scenario, price retest this zone and then give us an opportunity to continue the short bias back into this fair value gap here. So let me see here. Let me draw this out for you guys. So we see price come into this zone. I'd like to be a seller somewhere in here and retest, these lows is where I'll be looking for. If we fail to get this, then ultimately I'll start to look for buys if we fail to break these lows, or if we fail to really retest these lows. Because again, when you hit your quarterly objectives, or the way I trade at least, the way when I hit my quarterly objectives on a particular pair, the thing that I want to do is just kind of take a step back from the market and really just and give the market time to give us a new objective. And so short-term targets will be back to this zone. At this point, I'd like to see a retrace back into this level. And as we kind of go through the analysis for US30, which is the Dow Jones, or S&P, which is US500, we'll start to see if there's any lower objectives on there that kind of line up with a continued bearish bias. But as of right now, what I want to see is price, trade out of this fair value gap and start to give us some bullish momentum back to 14,393. Really grab liquidity that we didn't have a chance to gain in this level, maybe even give us a potential retest of this low here. And at that point, I'll look to go short. If we could get a continued break above 14,661, then I think that we can continue on with the bullishness idea. Kind of seeing some intermarket connectivity. If we also start to see the dollar index to continue to break structure and give us some lower lows, then then we can start to potentially work with the ideas of the market shifting into more of a bullish market. But again, I think that we're going to go a little bit lower once we hit this level. So once we come back to 14,300 and that 14,375, 360 level, then I'll start to look for shorts again. So that's a little bit about what's going on with NASDAQ. I'm not going to break it down any lower than that, but just kind of keeping things high level. And then in future weeks, we can potentially even take things a little bit deeper into our analysis. So that is with NASDAQ. So let's kind of jump to the S&P. So what I use for the S&P is I'm either looking at a E-mini S&P 500 chart, or I'm going to, just pull up the US 500 chart and go from there. So let's kind of start and take things at a very, very high time frame. So let's look at the weekly. So there's a couple things to outline. So obviously we know that, our indice pairs are going to run very similarly. If you look at US 500, a lot of times it's going to be correlated with what's going on with the Dow Jones, which is US 30, or the NASDAQ or US 100, right? And so, if we're holding a bearish bias, if we're holding a bullish bias on dollar, obviously we should be holding a bearish bias on indices. And so if we're holding a bearish bias on NASDAQ, again, we should be holding a bearish bias going into the S&P too. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. So coming into last week, I had outlined to my mentorship group again that I wanted to see lower prices. And so there was a couple levels that I had laid out. So coming in here, I wanted to see price do a couple of things. This was kind of our target for the week. So if I zoom in on this, so the weekly sell side at 4,234 level was really the target that we were looking to get hit. And so I wanted to see like an accelerated run through this, especially since we had already really just had a huge momentum and rejection, a very similar rejection away from this fair value gap level that begins at 4,385. So we saw price reject from this level pretty rapidly, take out lows here, trade past our consequent encroachment of this wick at this level here, and then really just run for this sell side. So I wanted to see, a pullback into the zone and then just really continue to run and take out sell side here. I also had a couple of targets that I was looking at here for these lows. And so I wanted to just kind of see price continue to this level. And so fast forward a week, this is exactly what we got. So we saw price come out and take this earlier in the week and then really just reject and run and hit our secondary target, which was the sell side at 4,131. And so just looking at price action, if we take a step back and just kind of see what's going on with US 500 or the E-mini, I want to continue to see a bullish momentum or bullish run. I'm looking specifically at this volume imbalance that's sitting here at the 4,000 level. So noting that we did create, a few imbalances here at this level, what I want to see for going into this week is I really want to see price give us a retrace back from this zone. And we'll narrow this down as we kind of break down the time frames. But I want to see a retrace back into this level and then give us a continued run at this volume imbalance here and really just fill this area of liquidity that needs to be, or area of lack of liquidity that needs to get filled. So if I break things down to the daily time frame, you can see here that there's, that since this is the SM mini chart, there's going to be a lot more gaps. And so usually what I do is switch down to the US 500 at this time. And so this just gives me a little bit clearer idea of what's going on. So same chart, just a little bit different, or same pair, basically, just a little bit of different analysis. And so this kind of helps me outline some targets that I think we might be running for. And so really there's the first thing that sticks out to me here, these relative equal lows sitting right here. And so at this levels, basically we tapped this area, and I think, really giving us these relative equal lows here, I think we're going to retest these levels to start the week off. So what I want to see here is kind of continue on what I just said earlier. I want to see a retest back into in an ideal level would be this area right here beginning at 4,157. And I'd like to see price retest these areas of lows at 4,045 to kick the week or for next week. And so that's ideally what I would like to see for the week on S&P. If we go down to just one more time for into the 4 hour, again, we can see here that Again, there's a volume imbalance that's sitting right there on the 4-hour time frame. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got a retest all the way back up here. Also noting that there's an imbalance here on the 4-hour time frame, which begins at 4,122 and runs all the way to 4,136. So just noting a particular level here that I'd like to see price potentially retest. So either at this imbalance here, and if I zoom out, you can see this a little bit better. At this imbalance here or here, I'll start to look for shorts, depending on what the setup looks like coming into Monday. So zooming back out, again, I'd like to see price take out at least the buy side sitting over this high at 4,163 or back into this fair value gap here at beginning at, again, 4,165 and see a continued run down to the downside here. If we start to make higher highs and break structure going into the week, then I might change my bias. But coming, just based on a pre-market analysis, this is what I would like to see, price pull back to this level and really just give us a continued run to take out the sell side that's sitting here. Sell side L is what I call it. So really this is my target here. And then if we do see an accelerated run, I'd like to see here. Ultimately, I think our quarterly objective, if we look at the weekly time frame, are these relative equal lows, right? That's sitting right here at 4,043. I think the price is going to come in here. We've also traded, we'll be retrading back into this former imbalance here. So I think these are going to be our quarterly lows. If we do really see an accelerated run, there also is this volume balance sitting down here, 3,918. But for this week in particular, this is going to be my target. So I want to see price come to this level over this week or going into next week. Noting that we are ending the week off and that we are going into a new week. Obviously, there's going to be some news releases that we want to watch out for. So I'll talk about that in a second. But overall, again, I don't ever call the heads or the tops or bottoms in a trend. So if we are having an accelerated run, I'd like to see price pull back and continue this run to take out liquidity at these levels. If we move to US30, very similar. Again, so just going into last week's price action, again, I was predicting bearishness on this, and this is what I'd outlined to my students in my mentorship. So wanted to see price, reject away, continue to reject away from these lows. And so coming into last week, my target level was, I had a couple targets outlined. And so this was my initial target, short-term target at 32,700 and 32,804 was my target for that level. Just because, again, the previous week we had traded into this fair value gap right here and then rejected, and prices continued on. And I wanted to see price use this level as an inversion fair value gap, and all that means is just a break and retest. And so once we got a break past this level, I wanted to see price continue to go down and basically take out the sell side sitting at this level, and then ultimately this is kind of like my quarterly objective for Dow Jones. And so I think we can get here just because we're sitting inside of this previous fair value gap. There's a volume imbalance right here that has not been retested, and then you have these relative equal lows. Whenever you see volume imbalance, a relative equal lows sitting above a former liquidity marker, as I call them, then just know the price, there's a really good chance that price may retest those levels. So again, this is kind of like my longer term target at 31,420 and then 31,000 as well. And so short-term targets for the week, last week I wanted to see price come in and take out this level. If we fast forward on the charts, this is exactly what we got, I believe. Yep. And so we just pretty much had a rapid run through of this level of sell side liquidity. And so I wanted to see coming into this week, we obviously have created a new imbalance here. So I want to see price trade back into this range and give us an opportunity to continue on. And I'm really specifically looking at a few levels. Like I said, this volume imbalance down here that begins at 31,104 and then runs to 31,229. And then obviously the sell side liquidity that's sitting here at 31,447. So I'm just going to mark these out really quickly. And then we'll break it down to the daily just to get a little bit more exact on a pullback level. So really here, I'm looking at this to be our potential target long term. If I go to the daily, we can kind of see a few things. Obviously, we've created this huge imbalance. I'd like to see, the price action pull back to a level. Yeah, let me break this down to the 4-hour. I'd like to see price continue to this level. I could see it going as high as 32,756, but ideally I'd like to see price trade back into the zone, beginning at 32,462 and ranging all the way to 32,686. So I'm just going to mark it here and then continue to go down. And let me drag this to my daily. Back to my daily. And overall, our target is really going to be this 31,700 level. I could see, since we do see relative equal lows in this daily time frame, I wouldn't be surprised if we ran through 31,480 as well. But ideally, this is kind of the target that I'm looking for to get hit across all of our pairs again. So just to kind of summarize things, I'd like to see a continued expanding run down on indices, US30 Dow Jones, US 500, which is the S&P, and then NASDAQ, obviously, US 100 as well. Want to see continued selling pressure and selling off on those. And then dollar index, again, holding a bullish bias on this. But again, going back to dollar index, I want to make sure that we break past this level. And so again, everything starts with the dollar index. If we do fail to see a break above this level, then we could see a retest of lower lows, which would also lead to higher prices on the dollar. So again, starting things off, I wouldn't be surprised for the week if we came down to a lower level here, started things off, and then broke past this level to take us past constant encroachment on the dollar, which again will lead us to continued bearish prices on indices. So hopefully this, guys, has been a great help for you guys. If you guys have any comments as well, let me check these out. If you guys have any questions as well, just feel free to connect with me on social media. So obviously, again, shout out to Trading Nut platform for giving me the platform to talk about and break down my charts. And hopefully this will be a continued partnership. But Brinks Trades on Instagram, that's BRINX Trades on Instagram. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this and have a good rest of your weekend. Peace.